Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sanderlanche. This week we are covering Mistborn, The Final Empire, chapters 22 and 23, wherein they're really two big character chapters. We've got, we learn a bunch of stuff about Doxin and Sazed, and then we get some interesting interactions at a ball between Vin and Elend, and Vin has two boys chasing her. Shocker. So I am Data, and with me is...
Joe?
Jaymee?
And I'm Tom Tucker.
Does my mustache tickle women when I kiss them?
The answer was only slightly.
Only slightly. Only slightly.
I hate that show. I'm sad that I know that. Anyway. There we go, everybody. Grab onto something. The Sanderlanche is about to begin.
My revolution carries me in a moment lost in time. My revolution sets me free. I will flow across the lines. Bring them the brother in me. I'm searching for you.
Okay, so like I said, this week we have a lot of character moments happening. What did you guys think kind of overall of these two?
Yeah, I like some character development, you know? We got Vin trying to find out more about Sazed and Doxin. We get a little bit of Sazed, which was delightful. Doxin's story is kind of sad, but understood. And then I really like the conversation he has with Vin, basically telling her, like, no, this is how the nobles are. Your little friend probably has been with whores as well. That's just how it goes. He's probably killed a Ska woman. He's probably had sex with Ska women. That is how the nobles live. And then we get to see kind of the reverse of that when she goes to the party in the next chapter and she confronts him about it. And honestly, these chapters kind of gave some credence to my theory. I think that, you know, it looks like maybe he's going to turn, but I think down the line there's going to be like a breaking point where he has to make a decision, and he's going to probably decide not to abandon the life he's known. So, but we'll see. We'll see about that, I guess.
Yeah, I really like these chapters. I mean, I'm loving this book, which is really good, but it was nice to have a bit of yeah, it's a big investment if you're not enjoying the book. So
It's true.
I liked that we had a bit more dimension for Elend as well. He's been a bit of a mystery this whole time, so it's kind of good to see a bit of a genuine side to him. Like, he genuinely seems to care about Vin, which is nice. And even when she's not around, you know, he's still speaking about her positively. So I don't know. I had some big ideas that he was an imposter as well. And I don't know. I think these chapters have sort of flipped that on its head for me, but I'm keen to learn a bit more about him. I liked hearing a bit more about Doxin. It was a really good wake-up call, I think, for Vin. She's getting a bit swept up in this noble society, and then to see her put what she's learnt into action at this ball, and just how her views have changed. She's been thinking, you know, these guys aren't so bad. No, it can't be all bad. Surely they don't know. But for her to actually question things and think differently, I thought was really good as well, rather than just having another ball that she's going to. But yeah, I thought these were quite good chapters. We got a lot of information, and things are starting to make a bit more sense, which is cool.
I was just super happy we got more of Doxin. I really felt like this character's been, I don't want to say neglected, but I can't think of another term at the moment. Just, he seems like we really haven't done much with him lately, even though we met him before we met a lot of the others. And I was like, when does this dude get to like have his day? So we didn't get, it's not like we got a large moment with him, but we got enough to really see this is who he is and this is why he does what he does. So I was really grateful for that.
Yeah, I think it's definitely probably the most we've kind of personally interacted with Doxin since the start of the book.
Yeah. So that
Also
was
a bit of recognition for what he does in the crew, you know, because he's always shuffling papers and he's doing this, and you know, to have Vin say, you know what, this crew would probably fall apart without him. Like, he is the reason we are successful.
Yeah. I feel like we've just sort of, I don't know. I feel like we've just seen all the other guys doing their things, but again, just there's been no focus on what this guy brings to the table. So it's nice to see him getting that recognition. It's like, actually, this guy is the reason we all still alive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess that's really kind of the inherent danger when you're doing a big like ensemble cast sort of thing. Is there's always it's hard to give everybody their moments that they need.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. It's definitely nice to see Doxson getting some attention for once. And I mean, it's funny because he's kind of the background guy in the crew and in the story, which maybe that goes hand in hand. But he's just like, he's the guy making everything run smoothly. So it's one of those things where you don't hear much from him unless there's a problem. And so I guess it's kind of hard to write that character very actively in a book.
Yeah. Because if you focused on him, like had chapters about him doing their task, they'd probably either be, well, this is kind of boring, or else he wouldn't be that character. He'd be an action character.
Right.
Kind of reminds me a bit of we have a role at my work, and I remember someone describing this role that was like, if everything is going well, you will never hear this person, you will never see what they do.
Mm-hmm.
You just, like, if this person nips all the problems in the bud before you even know that they were potential problems. So it kind of reminds me of that sort of role.
Yeah, I feel like probably most jobs have somebody like that deserves way more attention than they get because nobody notices that they're making everything go.
Basically the stage manager.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, let's get into this one. So just kind of like the last chapter, we get kind of a double helping of the logbook here. But the first part is really the part that we haven't seen, or is the new part, obviously, the epigraph. And I think we get kind of more information on the deepness here than we've ever gotten before, even though it's still not very helpful.
Yeah, it's like we got this great description of the deepness that actually describes nothing. It's like, cool, here's a description of what the deepness does, but not what the deepness is. Which I guess is kind of necessary, but still a pain in the ass.
It's like they're intentionally trying to hide it from us. What jerks.
I know, right? Show us Cthulhu, damn it.
I mean, it gives us a little bit of thought about, we're like, oh, well, if the Lord Ruler is the deepness now, the crops are failing, the land is dying. This was already a thing. So I think it definitely fuels that somehow the Lord Ruler's been possessed by the deepness or something. But this was starting to happen even before the Lord Ruler was around. So the Lord Ruler himself is not the cause of this, but he's definitely not helping it.
The deepness is like unagi. It's not something you are, it's something you have, right?
What is that a reference to? Like, the only thing I can remember hearing unagi.
Yeah, unagi. Yeah.
Sorry, I hear unagi, I think Avatar Last Airbender. Wasn't that the giant fish?
Yep, you're right about that.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So it's like in that context, your quote makes no damn sense.
Agi's like eel or something, isn't it? Hold on, I gotta look this up. It is the Japanese word for freshwater eel. Random side trip down sushi or whatever, but but no, that's a good point that I hadn't really thought of. Is that it's saying crops were failing and the land is dying, and they think that this thing has been defeated. But when you look at what they say, at least the land was like before, all green and stuff. And now all the plants are brown and there's ash everywhere. It's like, oh, maybe the crops did fail and the land did die. Okay.
There's a little note there. It's like, oh yeah, at first people didn't think the deepness was a danger, at least not to them. I'm like, oh, that is just a really sad reflection of how people treat a crisis.
That's totally true. Yep.
Just we're in the wake of a pandemic. No, nothing like that going on.
You can't get me. I'm too awesome. Oh. Yeah. Okay. We're not going to go too deep into current events.
Isn't that true?
That I'm too awesome for germs to get me? Totally true.
Well, I was talking about me, but yeah, sure.
Oh, yeah. We weren't raised in the same house or anything. It's fine. And so he's worried that he's already taken too long and it might be the end of the world. And so, I don't know. Maybe it was. And then we get kind of the review of some bits of the logbook that we've already had, except once again with kind of the details filled in, where Vin is reading about when he first shows up in Terrace, and it's all pretty, and there's pretty mountains, and so on and so forth. And we start to get more of what we find out in a minute is ferrochemy, where these guys are storing up their strength for later. And we can get into that, I guess, a little bit more when Sage starts talking about it here. But did this kind of section elucidate anything for you? Give you anything more than we got out of it the first time when it was in pieces as we read through?
Not really. I mean, it's mostly just scene setting.
I don't think there was not really a huge amount of extra information, but I did find that I was sort of excited to see what little hints might be dropped and then what's about to be explained about these. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
no, that was pretty cool.
You just had that little hint of them. They spend an hour lying on their bedrolls. Like, it's just sort of, oh yeah, this is where they're just basically recharging. It's like the gargoyles turning to stone for the day. Like they regenerate their health and their energy in doing so.
Another Gargoyles reference. We're always at the cutting edge of pop culture here.
Yeah.
Is Gargoyles.
To a cartoon from 2.5 decades ago.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, hey, it's got Frakes and Marina Sirtis, and they're both in Picard or whatever, so we're right on the cusp.
You know, it's got a lot of Next Generation cast that show up for like 1 or 2 time roles. Like Brent Spiner plays Puck in a couple episodes. Anyway, no, I'm sorry. We're not gonna get. You see, you start bringing Star Trek: The
That
Next
one was not
Generation
my
into
fault.
it.
Yeah,
no,
that was my fault. Hey,
that's where
but
I get distracted.
we can make this the Gargoyles podcast if you want. I mean, I'm down. It's not a big deal.
I don't know that I've ever watched that show like straight through. I've just seen pieces here and there, so that would totally work. No, we're reading, and as Vin says right now, reading is sucks, right? I love that Vin's just like, she just come to the conclusion that she does not like reading.
I did laugh at that.
And then the other conclusion is that the Lord Ruler, I can talk, is way too whiny for any god. It's like, which yeah,
Dear
okay.
diary, today I fought the secret and it was really mean.
It's like he's very introspective in a lot of what we've read, and I can see why that would not be Vin's cup of tea to read.
Well, there's also that, but also it's like when you think of the god, you don't think of someone who has doubts or second guesses or anything like that. So she's reading this through, and it's like, this is not how a god's meant to talk, you little shit.
Also, I don't know many teenagers that exist even right now that love to read. Like
I
all
did
the
when I was
all
teen.
the yeah, and I did too. I'm not bashing teenagers that love to read by any means. I think that's great. But most of the people I work with are younger than I am, and I always ask, like, did you ever read a book from cover to cover in high school? And they're like, oh God, no.
I thought you were gonna, did you ever read a book? No, God.
I guess for Vin, though, if you could fly through the night and do all these cool things, part of your training to sit down and read what the Lord Ruler wrote, and it turns out he's just really full of self-doubt. That your whole life is built on this guy. I could see why she's a bit annoyed.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
She leaves this book a 2-star review. Protagonist was too angsty.
Oh yeah, it's Twilight. This is their equivalent of Twilight? There you go. Okay, so and then Spook shows up. We love Spook. He says wuzzing with the docs to come and be without the stay.
Do we really love Spook? Well, let's back up for a second. Spook's like the equivalent of Tab Cola. Nobody likes it. It's just
Come on, Spook is
But then
great.
he said a real sentence. And I was like, what? Actual words that melt together and make a sentence.
Yeah,
he said
that
something
actually-
real.
That pissed me off more, because then I'm like, so he knows how to talk. He just chooses to
He just
talk
chooses
like an
not to.
idiot.
Well,
Yeah.
it says that he was struggling to do it without his dialect, so apparently it's hard. Talking normal is hard. But yeah, he totally. Once he tries another thing where he's like, weapons for the giving for the time to be, and she's like, oh, I didn't follow that one, and then he actually has to speak English or whatever it is they speak.
This is actually what sort of annoyed me here. It's like, so the second one is what he's actually saying, and the first one is what he's trying to say in his slang. And I was like, cool, now let's compare and see if I can translate. And I still can't fucking make it work. So just like, okay, I'm never gonna figure out his slang.
I think when you have the two and you compare them, you're like, okay, I kind of see the same theoretical ideas in both of these places, but not to the point that I could understand a brand new sentence.
I still struggled even comparing the two to make them gel.
It's pretty bad. Yeah. Okay. But you know, maybe it's getting better. Maybe.
Is there a rule, like, you know, sometimes when these works get created, the authors will write this whole language or something that they use. Like, is there a language, or did Brandon Sanderson just go, have some words? Like, is it something we'll ever learn how to read?
I don't know that there actually is, and this actually comes up in the annotations, and I wasn't going to read this particular one because it's kind of random, but since we're talking about it, he says that Spook is based very loosely on a person that I knew from this forum that he used to hang out on, was very good at posting random gibberish, which, if you looked at it very closely, actually reads to be rather poetic. So I wanted to do a character who spoke with a dialect that had an interesting rhythm, yet was difficult to make out. And he says, I don't really like dialects normally, yet something about this one was intriguing to me. I like the way the sentences sound, even though they're completely unintelligible. So it doesn't sound like he developed an actual language.
No.
Like,
Okay, good to know.
Now look at what he's reading, what he's writing, and just going like, this guy has a rhythm to his verse. Like, this isn't even a limping rhythm. It's more like a crippled one.
But then we get a real sentence. So maybe it's like a foretelling of things to come. Maybe there will be more real sentences down the line, right? We can be optimistic, especially if there's a trilogy of books. If he's going to be in here for 3 books, you got to hope at some point you can understand him.
Yeah, I
Turns out
really
Spook
hope he
is-
dies. I'm sorry.
Plot
Spook is
twist.
actually the
Spook
hero
is,
of ages.
I was going to say plot
there
twist.
you go.
Spook is the Lord Ruler.
Yes.
That would be unexpected. Yep.
Yeah. He whips out
Maybe
a sword and some Mistborn powers, and he's just like, "Wuzzing with the sword, coming soon."
Coming soon.
I
it's
feel
a
like
train.
we need to hear the Lord Rule. Like we need a version of the Lord Ruler's book that is written by Spook.
There
No, we
is-
Just to see what happens.
There,
Yeah, we
there's
do.
actually somebody has created online a translator where you can type stuff in and it translates into this speaking.
Oh
But-
my shit.
But we won't go there. No, it's fine.
Wow.
Next week, 30-second recap brought to you
Yep.
by Spook. It's happening.
Oh, and I volunteered. Fuck.
That's so tempting. Yeah. It's like, here you go, Dak. Read this.
God. All right, here we go.
Yeah. It doesn't even sound like kind of English, like with Middle English, you can tell the roots of the language are in there. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I can kind of tell what they're saying in the Canterbury Tales. I kind of get what's going on.
Yeah, okay,
No, it's
maybe.
just like, let's jumble this stuff around and make it super confusing for everybody.
Poor Spook. Okay, no, we've ragged on
Sorry.
Spook enough. It's okay. Well, and then Spook does something else interesting in that he pulls out a handkerchief, which Vin is so paranoid that she's like flares pewter in response to him reaching into his pocket and pulling something out. Hands her a pink and white handkerchief, and when she says, "What's this for?" he flushes and runs away. So,
He does that a lot.
well, yeah, it's true.
He
But I
has
mean,
a crush.
at this point in the story, did you have any thoughts about like what on earth that was supposed to be before Sazed actually tells us?
I thought
I
that's
had a
exactly what
feeling it
it
was
was.
some sort of, yeah,
Okay.
I knew it was some sort of like, I like you, please go on a date with me or something.
Yeah, it seemed like, the old knights would receive a handkerchief from their,
Yeah.
like as a token of affection, that kind of thing. So that's kind of what I figured.
I like Vin's response is to think that is one strange boy.
Hey, she's just thinking what we're all thinking.
Yeah, it's true. What we've just been talking about for like 15 minutes. Oh gosh. And then she finds out that Doxson and Raynu have gone into a conference without her, and she's slightly annoyed by this, which is fair, kind of.
Renu doesn't really seem to, well, whoever is posing as Reno doesn't really seem to care much about Vin aside from what appearances might be. Other than that, it's almost like if she wasn't there, it doesn't seem like he would really notice or care.
No.
Maybe that's just part of his act, but like I feel like he's very hands off. He's like, he doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, and I mean, you may be right. It might be part of the character that he's playing. Like maybe that's how a high nobleman would be. But well, and in this case, really, if he's really trying to be in an act, then there's no reason that he would call his niece to come in for a mercantile conference or whatever, which is what she thinks. She's like, yeah, there's no reason that Lady Valette would necessarily attend one of these. So that might be it. But yeah, he's definitely not going out of his way to be in any way considerate of her.
Yeah.
And so she's annoyed by that. So she's like, I'll just go off and find Sazed, and maybe he can tell me what this crazy boy expects me to do with this handkerchief. They talk about how she's reading the logbook, and Sazed is very excited. He's like, this is a keeper's dream. I'm discovering things about my culture that even I didn't know. And he's excited that Terrace is described as a place of green fertility, whereas currently it is a tundra of frozen dirt where no plants grow, basically. And this is where we get Vin's thought that she's like, why would green be beautiful? That would be like having blue or purple plants. Weird.
Oh, Vin.
It's her perspective. It makes sense.
I
having
mean,
grown up in
She's
Final
never
Fantasy.
seen it.
It's been the world for a millennium, I know.
And then she starts pointing out, she's like, hey, what's up with this thing where they get stronger and weaker and stuff? And he's like, she's like, does that have something to do with being a keeper? And he's like, I'm not going to talk about that. The Lord Ruler keeps trying to destroy us all, so we don't really want that whole us still being alive thing getting out. And then Vin does her over-the-top sarcastic, like, oh, man, well, I hope none of those secrets Kelsier wants us to find in the text are related to the powers. I'll just miss them, I guess, Too bad. It looks like he spends a lot of time talking about this. This girl, she's such a teenager. And he calls her out on it. It's like, you're being melodramatic, but okay.
Well, I mean, she's basically being raised by Kelsier, so.
Well, that's true, too. So he talks about how their art is called feruchemy, which we've heard that word once before. And they store up attributes inside of metal, certain physical qualities, and then draw on them later. So what do you guys think of the way that this magic is described as working?
I mean, it sounds like it's related to allomancy. Like when I was reading this, I thought, okay, it really sounds like allomancy is a bastardized version of this that the Lord Ruler has somehow created and dispersed among the population. Like feruchemy. Shit, that's not the word. The thing is, yeah, that was the original power in its purest form, and the Lord Ruler somehow created a corrupted version which he then spread around. And I think that might lead into why he hates the Keepers so much, because they've got the original perfect version of the power that he was never able to perfect. And so he's trying to, if he gets rid of them, he gets rid of the evidence that he fucked it up.
So you think that this version is superior. So we'll use strength as an example, because
superiority is probably not the right thing. It might be that allomancy is a more effective version of it, or it may not be. I don't know. We don't have a barometer for that. But strength. I don't think strength factors into it. I think that it's the original version, and this is how the powers were originally meant to be used. Like the original craft, and then the corrupted version doesn't work the same way, and I don't think the Lord Ruler is really happy that he didn't get it right.
You think maybe he was trying to copy their powers after having seen them in the logbook?
Yeah, I feel like that was the case.
Okay, interesting. What were you saying, Jaymee?
Pretty much the same sort of things. I would really like to know more about, are there the same metals, these different metals? But I thought it was really cool to get an insight into sort of how they work. I mean, we'd had little hints of things, the glasses and everything like that was having to use. But yeah, I was really interested in how it would tie in to allomancy, being that it is all metal. And yeah, which one did come first? Is allomancy the product of this feruchemy and the deepness? What went wrong? Or is it just an evolution of those powers? It sounds like the keepers, they're wearing the metal, they're in contact with the metal. Whereas allomancy, you've got to consume them. But then, allomancy won't affect metal that is inside the person, and seekers have got earrings and not seekers, what are they? Keepers have got the other one.
The other Harry Potter thing.
The other Harry Potter one. Yeah. Yeah, I would be really keen to learn a bit more about how allomancy even came about. But yeah, it was pretty cool. I think that they're linked in some way, but they are very different.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. We still don't know terribly a lot about this, although he gives us a pretty decent description here. But he talks about saving up physical qualities. So just based on that, and the examples that were given are strength from the logbook. They can save up strength. That he was saving up sight by using glasses. I think I got to get there. So they can save up attributes, which is definitely different from what we know about allomancy, where you're burning things. And I was talking about strength. It's like they have to save up strength to use later to make themselves stronger. Whereas in allomancy, you just eat more pewter and you can get stronger. So it definitely seems more convenient, at least, to be able to do that with allomancy, I would think.
It also seems like, and part of the reason that made me think allomancy is the corrupted version is it uses up the metal and burns it away, so you can't use it again. Yep. Whereas the feruchemy really seems more conservation, more economical, I guess. It involves you're basically recycling the metals. You can use them again later, whereas allomancy is a one and done method. So it just seems more wasteful, I guess.
It does,
kind of
definitely.
instant gratification with the allomancy too. Like you consume this metal and you boom, you can do it. Whereas as with Sayzed, he has to really think about when he's going to use it, when is going to be the best time to do it. You've got to save it up.
Yep.
Which, I mean, if you were, say, a corrupted young man who became a Lord Ruler, you wouldn't want to have to wait until you were strong. You just want to be strong.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, actually. Yep. And the way I think about it, because it's the way that it's actually kind of usually described later on, that kind of makes scientific sense for me at least, is they talk about allomancy as being like you're gaining energy from the metals in allomancy, so it's like an energy positive end result. You're getting I almost want to call it free. You're getting power from the metals to do stuff. With feruchemy, it's like an energy neutral magic, because you can get stronger, but you have to save up that strength first. It's the same amount of total energy. You're weaker for a while, so you can be stronger for a while. So one is like a net positive effect, and one is like a net neutral effect.
Yeah, cool.
But just that, I thought I'd mention that because it helps me when I'm trying to think about how they work. And then we get into a discussion about how they use these metals to save up this strength, and the Lord, or attributes, whatever attributes, and the Lord Ruler tried to deny Terracemen the right to touch metal at one point, and tried to make it like a privilege of nobility to have metal or wear metal, which Vin's like, well, it seems like the nobility wouldn't want to wear metal because then you're vulnerable to allomancy. And Sayzed is like, yeah, but it's like a thing that they do to wear some metal as like a fashion thing, because the Lord Ruler wears metal and they follow him in fashion. And she says, sounds foolish, and he says, fashion often is, mistress. Which ain't that the truth?
Correct.
Well, I mean, it fits. She was the one complaining about heels earlier.
Yeah. And apparently it didn't even work, because it's like you can't have servants that aren't ever allowed to touch metal. That's just awkward. And Sayzed is saying that he's hoping that they find the secret to why the Lord Ruler hates and fears Terracemen so much, that he's like persecuted them for so long. And they're like, maybe it has to do with this packman that he mentions that hating. And then we find out that while Sayzed and the Keepers remember all these religions, they do not remember their own religion. It was one of the first ones lost. And the whole reason they developed the Keepers to try to like rediscover these things, which is sad.
Sad, but it makes sense. It's like, this happened to us, we will not allow it to happen to anyone else ever again. But you see that sort of declaration in all kinds of stories, but this is a much more subtle version. It's like, we're protecting people's ideals in this rather than the people themselves.
Yeah, it's true. And it sounds very noble when you put it that way, but it's just, also it's very convenient, because we find out from the logbook that like the prophecies of the terrorist religion were what told about the hero and fighting the deepness and all this stuff, and those are the prophecies that Sayzed doesn't know anything about, so he can't help us there. We also find out that the Lord Ruler started out by just trying to exterminate all the terrorist people. Before the breeding programs, he's like, we weren't stewards or servants or even ska, we were just something to be destroyed. Which, yeah, okay. I don't have trouble believing that those horrible things happen. Not in this world that we've gotten used to.
No.
He destroyed their religion in the first 2 centuries of his rule, so very early on in this 1,000 years.
Yeah, so he obviously perceives them to be like the greatest threat to his rule. So that's where he focuses his attention for as long as possible in trying to just make sure he has nothing more to fear from them. In whatever. But yeah, sounds like he's just from the descriptions we've got from Elend's book and from all this stuff. It sounds like he acts sort of on whims. He's like, oh, that didn't work. Maybe I'll try this instead. So that's why he started. It's like, I'm going to exterminate them all. And then after the line, he's like, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this instead.
That's true. It does make him sound a little bit whimsical, or whimsical's not the right word, but yeah, that's an interesting point.
Yeah, he's not single-minded the whole time. I guess that's the thing. Like a lot of Dark Lord characters, just very this is my goal and this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to bend everything towards doing that. Whereas, yeah, it's like the Lord Ruler. It seems like he just goes, all right, that didn't work. Let's try something else now. not because something went wrong and he was forced to adapt his plan, but he just like looked at the facts and went, all right, don't think this one's working. Let's try something new.
So you think that makes him like a more effective Dark Lord, that he's willing to change tacks if something's not working?
I don't know if it's more effective, but he's just had more time in which to do that. I mean, most of the other Dark Lord characters only tend to be in power for a short amount of time. I mean, Emperor Palpatine was only around for what, like 30 years? Voldemort, he was in power for only a couple of years before he got knocked off. So, like, Lord Rule has the advantage of time.
It's true.
Dark times, Harry. Dark times.
We find out that he uses copper to store memories, which I think that's pretty cool. That's something that you can't do with allomancy, is store information. It's like a computer. But so they all remember everything in these copper mines, so that if even one survives, then they'll be able to give all the information back. So that's a good system, I guess.
Primitive USB drives.
Kind of. And really, I guess now that you're talking about it, it almost makes sense that if the Lord Ruler's defeating the Deepness or not defeating the Deepness and going to where he went and being the hero, if that's all described in these prophecies, then maybe that's why he exterminated that religion, because he doesn't want anyone finding out how that worked. And that might explain why he's after the Keepers so hard, if he thinks maybe they still know.
Yep, makes sense.
And then Vin's like, hey, what else can you store besides strength and memories and stuff? And he's like, I don't think I need to tell you anymore. And then she guesses sight, and he's just like, okay, because he needed to be able to see better the night that he found her, so he had to wear glasses for a while to store it back up. That makes sense. And he's like, yeah, I'm not talking about this anymore. Did you want something else?
Yeah, I'm done.
And then she pulls out the handkerchief and is like, yeah, what's this? And he goes, it appears to be a handkerchief, mistress.
So, yep, you're definitely the Alfred here.
Yeah, I like that she immediately shoots back, like, you've spent too much time around Kelsey or Sazed. And he takes this kind of joke very seriously. He's like, yeah, I know. He has corrupted me, I think. But we find out that in noble society, a handkerchief is the traditional gift a young man gives a lady that he wishes to seriously court. So that's super cute that Spook gave her that, and she had no idea what it was, and then he ran away without explaining.
Well, in fairness, if he tried to explain, she would have understood what the hell he was on about.
Probably true. Yep.
Exactly.
It's like, I don't think this relationship is going to work. We can't communicate very well.
Communication is important.
Maybe that's why he's learning English or whatever language they're speaking, so he can communicate with her. That's quite sweet.
That is. Although, presumably, he at least understands English, because nobody else talks in that language, and he seems to understand what they say. But yeah, maybe that's why he's practicing talking normal.
I mean, this guy's clearly the Ducky of the Pretty in Pink book we're now reading, so.
I love how shocked Vin is. Like, what? Is he crazy? And Say's just like, have you not noticed how he stares at you when you come into a room? And she's like, well, yeah, but I thought he was just creepy.
Well, he is that, Vin. He is that.
Yeah. And also totally, like, rational reaction. It's like, that guy's staring at me. What the hell's he staring at me for? What a freak. He thinks you're pretty. Wait, what?
I totally believe that Vin would be completely oblivious to that.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when she's not in the same frame of mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if she kind of liked him, maybe she'd notice it. But she's so far from even thinking about that. She's too busy crushing on Elend.
So true.
Why would anyone else be interested in her?
I mean, who wouldn't be crushing on Elend? He's so dreamy, right?
So dreamy.
We find out she just turned 17, so she's no longer a 16-year-old crazy girl. She's a 17-year-old crazy girl. I don't know if that's really relevant, but... And then we're reminded that Sazed is a eunuch and can't really, and that's sad for a minute. And then we find out that Ham is married. It's like he's been away from his wife for months. And she's completely shocked that Ham and also Yedin are apparently married, and they hide their families away from their underground activities.
I was like, okay, so what do their wives think of this? They can't be thrilled by that.
I don't know. I guess it depends on, how it works. Presumably, Ham's making some money from these jobs and sending it back for her, so that's probably good.
Yeah, but I can't see him just walking back in after months of training a militia and going, honey, I'm home. And she just goes, oh, how was work, sweetie?
Yeah, it's a fair point.
Depends on how on board they are with it too, though. Maybe the family is really supportive and this is the right thing to do, and
Possibly. I
you know,
guess
maybe they're part of the rebellion.
we need to see
With
them.
Yedden's family, it would be more of an issue because Yedden is working secretly with this rebellion. So maybe his wife's just really into it and she's all gung-ho about it. Who knows?
Well, actually, from what we've seen of Yedden, it's probably a case of his wife is the real strength in the family.
Yeah, exactly.
Entirely
it's
possible,
a Calvin. Yeah, it's a Calvin Coolidge for president thing. He only became president because his wife wanted him to.
And I love that it gets followed up with, like, what, is Breeze married or Dachshund? And he's like, Breeze is a bit too self-motivated for a family. I think.
Well, yeah, is like no woman is going to marry them because he's just going to sit on the couch the whole time. It's like, honey, can you get me a wine?
Yep. Bring me wine. I don't want to move from my seat.
And that's when you realize, like,
It's
Breeze
not
would just
marriage
be
material.
the deadbeat dad.
He's really not marriage material, I feel like. I'm just saying. And then we find out Dachshund's from a plantation, which also surprises Vin. I don't know that it surprised me at all, but I'm not used to thinking in terms of city ska versus plantation ska, which is apparently a big difference to them.
Yeah, I didn't really think about that much until it came up sort of here. I mean, there have been hints at it before, like when she was talking to Elend at the party and saying, oh, how your plantation ska treated, but it didn't really click in my head. It's like, oh, yeah, those are very different lives.
Yeah, it's true. And she realizes she has friends for the first time ever, and maybe she should take an interest. So she goes and finds Dachshund, and he tells us a little bit about his history. And what did you guys think of his? This is back to the "It sucks to be a ska" segment, I think. But
It sucks to
It really does
be a ska. Okay, now we're good.
so what do you guys think about that? About his story?
It's sad. He was so in love. And all the families were on board with it, and it was like, yes, you do this, we're supporting you. And she was killed, and it's just awful.
I mean, yeah, it is sad. I feel like it's kind of par for the course at this point, though. It's nothing we haven't seen or wouldn't expect.
Yeah.
Well, he even says that, and he says, my story isn't that original.
I mean, to be fair, in the very first, not even the chapter, the prologue, we saw exactly that happening. Is the nobleman comes out to takes a pretty girl, and they know that she's going to end up dead.
I guess it's one thing, though, to know that happens, but then to a character who we're quite fond of to have been through that as well. You're just like, oh, that is a really horrible thing. And we spend a lot of time focused on, Kelsia's loss and, Vin's story and stuff. And you sort of stop and think, actually these other characters have got stories. And they're in this rebellion for a reason. They're fighting for something, and it makes sense that they've suffered losses as well. But I mean, every Scar who would go through something like this, it's really sad.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. You have to imagine it's happened to all of them at some point. And he even says, he's like, I don't think you could probably find any Scar who hasn't lost someone to a nobleman's like whim or whatever. And that's how we transition into, he's like, oh yeah, you've probably seen, my old plantation lord at balls. He's in Luthadel over the winter. And she's like, how could they let a monster like that in there? And she's like, what are you talking about? They're all monsters.
He's very matter of fact about it. It's like, they're all like that. He was actually probably one of the nicer ones. Like,
yeah. Like he gives him credit for that. He's like, oh no, yeah, he was, as far as these things go, he was a pretty good guy.
He at least let the elderly live until, the population was too high.
Yeah.
It's not that they just got up one day, they couldn't get up, and you're dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, here it is. He only purged the elderly when the population got completely out of control. Rarely beat them to death. Just every once in a while.
Yeah. He was in a bad mood one day. You can understand.
I think for Vin, though, with her, with her interactions and stuff, she's like, yep, they get beaten, they get murdered. I mean, she's really been part of a crew her whole life, so she's in the underground, she's not exposed to it, so she hears stories about what goes on and they get beaten and stuff, but this is just a completely new side of it.
Well, and she's really, as he points out, she's let herself get swept up in what she sees at these balls. And we've kind of talked about it several times because she's been reminded several times, like when she sees that boy get killed in the courtyard.
Mm.
And she can still justify to herself, it's like, no, they're not that bad. They just... And Doxson is with Kelsier in that they're all evil, basically, and there's nothing that can be done to... He says they can't be redeemed, Vin. I don't think Kel will be happy until they're all dead. I doubt we can have to go that far, or even that we can. But I'll be more than happy to see their society collapse. And you're right. He's very matter-of-fact about it. Where Kelsier is very passionate about murdering all these noblemen, Dox is just like, yeah, they're all messed up. We got to kill them all. It's just, it's a shame, but what can you do?
It seems like just how blasé he was about, oh, this is my story, and this is what happened to the girl I loved, and now we're in this situation, this is what we're doing. It's just like, shit, dude, you're really... He's just sort of crushed down his feelings about it, and it's like, this is the task, this is what we get, this is what we got to do, and this is why we got to do it. And like, shit, man, you're really dealing with some trauma.
Mm-hmm.
But also, if he doesn't keep a level head, could you imagine what Kelsier would be like? Like, Doxson's kind of like that good angel sitting on his shoulder that's like, Kelsier, calm down. Like, you can't just go and slaughter all of the noblemen and hope it'll go away, because they will retaliate. But
and I feel like
we
that
have to
is
overthrow
going
them,
through...
and yes, they do need to die.
I feel like that's going through Doxson's head all the time. It's like, I've got to be the level-headed one, because God knows I can't trust this idiot to do it.
Yeah, and Vin's right. Without Doxson, they'd probably be all dead.
And we get a description of how brothels work, which I don't know that anyone particularly needed, but it's like, the brothels, they get all these ska women, and then they periodically just kill them all and get some new ones so that, to maintain the status quo, so the noblemen can come and visit these brothels.
It's like, that's totally, totally fucked up, and not at all surprising, which is also totally, totally fucked up.
Yep.
Yeah. So they also said that they have some very poor noblewomen as well.
Yep. Yeah. He says
In
that
the
some of them use some of them use very poor noblewomen, so they don't have to kill them periodically to get replacements.
Yeah. I mean, for those poor noble women, that might be like a chance for... I'm not saying this is a good thing. I'm just saying it might be a chance for them to, like, what if I fathered an illegitimate child for one of these noblemen? Maybe I'll be cared for and compensated for my, for bearing a child.
For all we know, that might have been how
True.
Kelsier and Marsh's mother's situation was. She might have convinced this brothel that she was one of those, and that's how she had these illegitimate children. Doxson's like, the noble women don't even consider it cheating when their men go and sleep with these ska women and kill them, which comes up in the next chapter. Is the only reason I jump back to mention that. But so yeah, Doxson is pretty much in the same boat as Kelsier, where he's like, yep, we're gonna kill all these guys. And we end this chapter with Vin being like, they can't all be like that. Elend's never done that, has he? You poor girl.
Dang.
And yeah, this really, it's a nice moment, even though it's depressing and it's it sucks to be a ska section, like we talked about before. It's a nice moment to get some more time with Doxson, which we haven't really gotten. And actually, since we're at the end of the chapter, I thought I would mention something to you guys and get your thoughts on it, because in a video that Brandon just put up, or he did a live Q&A, he's signing a lot of books because they're coming out with the 10-year anniversary of one of his books, and he's doing a bunch of signed books. Anyway, so while he's signing, he's like, let's do videos with Q&As or something. We'll put it on YouTube just so I'm doing something while I have to sign thousands of books, basically. And so as he's answering questions, one of the things that he has regularly said about this book, and you guys may have picked up on this, is that one of his regrets about this book in particular, because it's, his second ever published book, and anybody who's written anything knows that you immediately regret all the things you didn't do when you wrote that thing. But he says that he was so focused on making Vin this strong, interesting female character that it didn't occur to him, it slipped his notice that all the other characters on the crew are men. And he's like, I would have liked to have more female characters on the crew if I'd written that book today. Because really, it's other than Shan, who's, shows up a couple times so far as a foil for Vin, there's not a whole lot of women in this book.
I feel like, the next biggest female character is dead, which would be Mare.
Mare, right. So somebody asked him, since he's expressed this for years and years. Whenever anyone asks him, what do you regret? What do you wish you could change about a previous book? That's like his go-to. So somebody asked him during this signing, now that you're doing a screenplay for this, for Mistborn, like as a movie, are you fixing this thing that you've repeatedly say you regret? Like, do you have any plans to change that up? And he's like, oh yeah, I already have. Actually, in the screenplay, Doxson and Ham are women. And it's caused a whole lot of stir. Some people love the idea, some people hate the idea. And this very section that we're in is one of the reasons that people give for why they don't think Doc should be a woman, because they're like, well, his backstory won't be nearly as poignant. We'll have to completely change it. And so I'm curious, what do you guys think about that? We're only a little more than halfway through the book, so you don't know where anything goes. But at this point, what do you think about changing those two characters?
As soon as you said he is changing it in the screenplay, my mind immediately started whirling to which of these characters would be a woman, and which one do I think that would fit without changing the character very much? And my mind immediately went straight to Ham. I'm like, Ham, easily Ham. I think that fits really well. I'm not sure about Doxson. I feel like I couldn't tell you why. I feel like I don't think that's the greatest fit for him there. That said, I can't think anyone else who would fit. I mean, you could have Clubs, instead of being the grumpy old man, be a grumpy old woman. See how that goes. Because I mean, aside from Doxson, Clubs is the one we know the least about, really. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like it doesn't fit Doxson. I'm not really sure why, but if that's the change they're making, well, whatever, I'll watch it.
Well, I mean, specifically his backstory, like I said, how much of this backstory is Doxson's motive to being a part of this crew, and what would replace that, I guess, if they made him a woman? Because if you just flipped the gender role, would the same thing have happened? Like, if Doxson was a woman, did someone take the Scar that she was in love with? Did he just get murdered, for something else? I mean, you could flip it that way, and he's like, well, female Doxson would still have a motive to do it, but I guess it depends on how much that part of the story actually comes into play later. I'm definitely all for having strong female characters, and that's really good, but I don't like having more female characters in for the sake of having female characters. Everyone's got a story, everyone's got a purpose, and I mean, I don't know, these characters were written as male characters. I don't know whether just changing them up is, for the sake of having more female characters, is appropriate. But like I said, definitely supportive of having more female characters, but it's also okay to have male characters.
Okay.
Yeah. For me, I think if I was writing it and I decided, you know what, I'm going to make Doxson a woman when I write the screenplay, I think, and again, this is my choice, I'm not saying this is the right choice, but my choice would probably just be to make Doxson a woman, but make her gay. And then you could still have her be in love with a woman that was taken by a Ska nobleman.
That could work.
The friendship dynamic between Kelsier and the Doxson character doesn't really have to change any. Like, you're not wondering if there's some kind of sexual tension between them since they're such good friends. I feel like if you're going to make Doxson a woman, that probably, in my mind, you could retain most of the character qualities by doing that. And like Dax said, I think Ham's a good choice too, because a philosopher warrior can be a woman just as easily as it could be a man. But my mind actually jumped to Breeze when you first said he was going to change some of the characters to women. I think Breeze would also have been a fine choice to do that with.
It's funny that you say that about Doxson, because that is basically exactly what I said on Reddit when people were talking about this. Like, oh, you can't change Doxson, it'll mess all this stuff up. And I'm like, well, I feel like if you have girl Doxson be interested in other women, then it maintains like the sort of relationship she has with Kelsier. That doesn't have to change. It makes perfect sense. And just basically all the stuff you said was exactly the stuff that I wrote like yesterday when this came out. So I thought that was interesting that you came sort of the same conclusions. And although, I mean, there's other ways you could go that could also be interesting. Like I suggested maybe it turns out that Girl Dachshund was like Mare's best friend, in which case there's a whole new level to it when Kelsier comes back from the pits, Mare not having made it and potentially betrayed him.
Shit, that's a wrinkle.
So, but yeah, I feel like Dachshund works okay, but I kind of agree with y'all that Ham actually makes perfect sense. And I'll go one further, that I think it adds a really interesting layer to it to have the super strong, the pewter burner who hits stuff be maybe even not just a woman, but like kind of a small woman, because it doesn't matter how big you are. Vin is tiny, but is super strong when she burns pewter. So it would be unexpected for people new to this universe to walk in and be like, oh yeah, that's the muscle of our group over there.
Yeah.
Visually, that could be really interesting.
It'd be like a
Ham
Toph
is Jessica
situation in
Jones.
Avatar.
Yeah,
Jessica Jones
or
or Toph from Avatar.
I love Toph. Yeah,
any small strong woman.
Whenever he's talked about before even this announcement, when I was trying to think who would work as a woman, I thought about Breeze too, but then my mind immediately goes to all of these things that were like making fun of Breeze, that he's like this lazy, manipulative, self-centered jerk. Somehow in my brain, it's fun when that's a man and we are making fun of that. If all those same qualities were in a woman, I feel like people would be upset about it. That's the woman that you're portraying.
I mean, I guess. I don't know. I feel like regardless of gender, anybody can act that way.
That's true. You're not wrong. Okay, so
I think like Breeze would almost be a bit obvious. Sorry, we'll leave that there.
He is kind of, I want to say almost prissy at times, so maybe that is too obvious a change. But yeah, I was just curious, since that's kind of something that that is coming up and people are talking about currently, what you guys thought, since we're in a position where you could actually provide an opinion at this point on that. Next chapter, we're moving into chapter 23. That's the number. And this epigraph has the guy talking about how he's like, I barely sleep at night. And then when I do lie down, I can't sleep. So, and he hears a thumping sound from above in the mountains, drawing him closer.
Right, so this is the point where my mind just went, okay, what the hell is the Well of Ascension? What is it doing? Like, because I don't know, I'm probably wrong, but for some reason, I just thought to myself, is this the well that's drawing him closer? We've heard it mentioned a few times throughout the text, but not, again, like the deepness, not what it is or what it does. And I'm like, okay, so if it's there playing the drum beat, is it like summoning him, or is it like trying to warn him away, like Demon Reach style? I don't know. This is just all very... I don't know what that thing is, and I want to know.
It's kind of an oxymoronic name too, right? Because it's a well of ascension. So it's just like, wait, what?
I don't think I ever thought about that. That's interesting.
Maybe it's you have to do something really, really dark. I mean, it's like we're talking about the deepness. Maybe the deepness lives in the well of ascension. You've got to sacrifice something or do something very horrible
maybe
to then
the
ascend
deepness,
and become the Lord Ruler.
Maybe the deepness ascended from the well.
I like it. He's from the Earth's core.
Maybe it's like Last Crusade, where you gotta pull the bucket of water up from the well and drink it out of the right cup or something.
Oh wait, Dak, I got it. Okay, I got it. The deepness came from the well of the ascension, from the Earth's core, because he's a volcano god and he creates all the ash. Volcanoes are back in, Dak. We're still in this.
The Well of Ascension is the volcano to end all volcanoes.
It is up in the mountains. They're
gonna get to the top and find Pierce Brosnan sitting there. That's a throwback.
Okay, so chapter 23. The first thing that we learn is that Kelsier's plan to kind of frame this one house for the murder of this other guy totally worked and got two other people murdered as payback. So good for him. It was a convoluted plan, but it worked.
The gossipy people. I was just waiting for someone to do the whole, I think the Batman deserves a medal or a straitjacket to pin it on.
It really is. She's just in the gossipy crowd here, and all the normal people are here. The guy who makes the crude jokes and her spineless boyfriend, or her date rather, not boyfriend.
Yeah.
And this guy's dead, and Vin's like, oh, I danced with him a couple of times at the last ball. And her date's like, yeah, was he any good? Not very.
Getting to the important part of the conversation, clearly.
Yeah. And somebody else is like, well, now he's dancing with the worms. Ha ha ha. These
Lame.
noblemen are so noblemen.
I just love the like this other guy gave the quip a pity laugh, which was more than it deserved. I'm like, oh, Jesus.
It's true.
But I think it just shows, all right, so this is what the noblemen all think of each other, and like they are just as thoughtless and uncaring about the fellow noblemen as they are the Scar. They just don't give a shit. It's other people's death is just a curiosity to them.
Yeah, it's true. They don't really care about anybody but themselves, it seems like, which it supports Dockson's point, at least, with this group. I don't know if you agree when it comes to the guy that we're going to spend some time with here in a minute, but and then we get this scene of the Obligator coming over and getting paid to like overhear this commitment to come and play a game tomorrow, which is Vin is just like, wow, that's really you call an Obligator over for stuff that small?
It's like this seems to be a gross misuse of their authority, and the Obligator's like, I'm about to misuse my hand upside your head.
I guess it's like the equivalent in their culture to swearing an oath, right? It's like they give the Obligator money to witness, like, I promise I'm going to do this.
Yeah, and it's well, and here let me read this one thing from the annotations, which kind of goes along with it. He says, I like the Obligator scene in this chapter as it gives Vin a chance to realize just what the whole Obligator system is really about. Regular priests watch over the spiritual well-being of their people. The Lord Ruler really doesn't care about that. So his priests watch over the economics of his empire. Seems like something a living god would do.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's like the priests of this religion sign off on contracts and witness. And she talks about it in the thing. She's like, basically, if an Obligator didn't sign a contract, it may as well have never been written. If they didn't witness a thing, then it may as well have not happened. So...
Obligators, lawyers of God.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, it's the equivalent to having a notary that that walks around and you pay to say, okay, this happened.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, and it does explain from like the very first time she went to a ball, she's sitting there and all these Obligators are walking around and randomly getting called over to tables, and she didn't really understand what that was all about. But now it makes sense because apparently they call them over to just hear any old thing to prove that, yes, I'm serious about this.
Yeah, whatever frivolous shit the noblemen's are talking about.
Well, it's funny because when we first read that, I was like, oh, they must be having all these really important discussions to warrant having the Obligator there. But now it's just like, oh, no. You guys, no.
Just got to call over the Obligator just to make sure I'm really going to give you the $7 back for that Uber ride last night.
Also, now that that's like a contract, what happens if they break that?
Really
For any
good
little
thought.
thing. Like, what happens if he doesn't go to that game? Does he get murdered? Probably.
Given what we know of the society, yeah, entirely possible.
Can't be
Send the
trusted.
spike
You don't
faces
know.
after him. Yeah.
Into the ditch with you. Or the pits, sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Give him the hook. He didn't come for the game.
So, yeah, I mean, that is actually a question that I had never thought of before at this point in the book, is like, what happens if he doesn't do it? They didn't specify a penalty, which theoretically, if you're writing a contract and having an Obligator sign off on it, probably the contract mentions some sort of breach of contract penalty. That's how that usually works. But yeah, who knows? Vin is having trouble being around these nobles because of how gross she now feels with them after what Dockson said. Which I don't necessarily blame her for, but... we find out the Inquisitors have been hitting more thieving crews, which, wonder what that's about.
I mean, I thought it was, they're obviously still looking for Vin. They tracked her to a thieving crew at one point. So I thought, they're looking for her. And they're looking for Kelsier as well, since he was the one who tried to break into the, whatever it's called, the palace.
Yep.
She
You'd
was
think
with
that
him.
Kelsier wouldn't be terribly hard to find, given his scars and things that make him stand out, but maybe it's tough to find him.
Well, it'd also be a case of it's like after that went down, like even the Inquisitors had to think, all right, he's not dumb enough to just keep walking around like with his like openly identifying himself after we nearly got them both.
One would think that, yep. And I love this one guy being like, "Cursed thieves, damn Ska don't know their place. Isn't the food and clothing we give them enough of a theft from our pockets?"
Ladies and gentlemen, the 1%.
Yeah, it's so true. Oh gosh. Yep. Yeah. No. And I also love that this guy's wife speaks up for the first time, just to be like, "Yeah, what kind of incompetent would let themselves get robbed by a Ska?" To which the guy flushes. And Vin notes that she only speaks up to make some sort of jab at her husband, which that must be a fun relationship, right?
Mm-hmm. That's a marriage of convenience or political advancement.
Yeah, she's probably really the type that wouldn't care if her husband made it with the Ska.
Yeah, no, that I buy that. And it's funny because that's the exact guy that she points out later. It's like, that guy would probably love a night with prostitutes.
But my mind immediately went to, I wonder if the wife hired the Ska crew to rob her husband.
Oh, that would be hilarious.
Just for shits and gigs.
Just so she could make fun of him.
Just so she could use it against him.
Yep.
Yeah. She's like the lady who's married to Matthew Perry in The Whole Nine Yards. She just hates her husband.
Oh, that lady. I love that movie. Her character is so fun to hate. And then we get Shan Ilarial back again, which I know everybody was just waiting for when she would show back up to belittle Vin some more.
She's just so delightful, you know.
Oh, the first thing she says is to Vin's date, like, "Oh, it's a pity your original date for this evening took sick. It appears you were left with few other options." Oh, just jab. And Vin mentions, maybe it was in a previous chapter that we talked about it, but it's like anytime Shan shows up, it's just to like dig at her. Like, she can't help herself.
It's a very teenage moment. Like, I just imagine her walking up and Vin being like, "Hi, Shan."
I can't start anything, or the headmaster will have a go at me. In this case, being Lord Ruler.
And I like that Shan is still wanting to use her to like spy on Elend. This time she wants her to get the names of his books. And she's like, "Elend hasn't really been spending any time with me lately. I don't think that I can really help you." And she's like, "I know. It appears that I overestimated your competence, child. One would think that once you got this guy's attention, you wouldn't let him slip away. Jeez. Can you do nothing right?" And then she's still got to insult her, so she's like, "Elend likes to shock the court, so naturally he chose to do so with the most homely and lumpish woman that he could find." This.
What is if you're describing somebody as lumpish? What is she getting at? Because first she calls her scrawny, but now she's calling her lumpish. So which is it?
I think it's like, are you imagining a Quasimodo style hump in her back or something?
So, according to Google, the definition of lumpish is roughly or clumsily formed or shaped, or in relation to a person, stupid and lethargic.
Oh, well played then.
Good
then
vocabulary.
Lumpish makes total sense.
So it's another nice night with Shan, our good friend, who, you know, if there's an "it sucks to be a Ska" segment, it's just right. It also sucks to be like lower nobility around these higher nobility, apparently, because they're just assholes.
Yeah, it's just like the audacity of these people to think. It's like, yes, I'm going to walk up to you and call you a little skank and expect you to do my bidding for me.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's not going to like backfire on you in some way. Like, I predict a very painful fate for this woman, and I will laugh.
So you don't think that she's going to come out on top?
In the long run, no. I don't know if it'll be this book or the next book, but I figure at this point, like, Vid's going to come. It's like, "Oh, by the way, you called me lumpish, dick."
Yeah. Yeah, she'll come on top, all right, on top of a glass dagger.
Stabby. Got it. And
go live with the plantation scarf for a while. That's your fate.
Ooh, that would be some poetic justice. So Vin sees Elend after the end of this conversation and just can't resist the urge to go over. And it's like, not because of Sean, but because I have to find out the truth. And they get into this whole thing where she's like, "You've been ignoring me." And he's like, No. Why do you say that? And she starts crying, which she hates herself for. But he's he seems to actually be concerned, and it's like, you're shaking. Let's go outside and get some fresh air. And they have this discussion about, she kind of just jumps right into it. She's just like, have you ever slept with a ska woman? Which is a heck of a thing to just throw out there, but okay.
Yeah, and to his credit, he is taken aback, but at the same time, he's like, he kind of takes it in stride and explains himself. But yeah, that's more credit than I would give him. If a woman that I kind of liked, all of a sudden walked up to me and confronted me and said, "Have you ever slept with a prostitute?" I'd be like, "Oh, wait, what?"
But also, I think it says a bit about Elend, because from what we know of the other nobility, if she'd walked up and said this to some of the others, they probably would have just gone, yeah, and?
It's true. So what do you guys think of Elend's story about what happened to him?
I would totally buy that that's a thing that would have happened.
Well, having met his dad, yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it reminds me kind of the Tyrion Lannister story of how his dad made him become a man.
Oh, yeah. Brutal. But
So,
also, there was that episode of Firefly where, you had the rich noble guy hired Inara to just, make a man of my son, I don't care.
I'd forgotten that episode. Yeah, that kind of does fit the same mold. And that guy was a huge jerk also, so it totally works.
Yep.
So, I mean, we've been pretty suspicious of Elend up to this point. Do you believe that this is a sincere this conversation that they have?
After reading the end of the chapter, I think yes, I do believe that this is sincere.
Because he's talking about it with his friends away from her?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think just it was that genuine, he saw she was upset and genuinely was like, wow, okay. And it kind of snapped him out of, stop being a dick for a minute.
It did. He did kind of change personality.
Down and talk to me.
Yeah. I think in that moment, that's probably the person he wants to be. If it came to he'd have to act upon it somehow, I'm not sure that he would do it. But, yeah, I think he really does want to be that person who's genuine and caring and not as ignorant as most of the nobility.
Okay. That is a big reverse from your previous, he's a plant by the Lord Ruler's stance. So interesting how much one chapter
he still
can
could
change
be,
it.
but
Yeah.
I think it was just because we just had a genuine conversation. It wasn't him being all aloof and just being a jerk in general. It was a pretty big backflip from him. But, I mean, I'm sure we've got plenty more interactions with him, so you never know.
No, it was the last time he shows up. It's weird.
In the next chapter, Elend dies.
Kelsey's just like, she's crushed on him too hard. Better throw his body off a bridge.
No, Kelsier promises not to kill any of them in this chapter. It's okay.
All right, fine.
Yeah, well.
Clubs throws his body off a bridge.
So
Did an obligator witness that promise?
Oh, we'll see. There you go. That's a good point. I like that she just comes out after he admits what happened. She's like, how many girls have you murdered, Elend Venture? He's like, no, it was only the first time when I didn't know what was going to happen, I promise. And he says,
only one.
Yeah, well, she doesn't blame him for that, which he says that he didn't know. And I don't know if I believe that a 13-year-old in the Final Empire doesn't know that after a nobleman sleeps with a ska woman, they have to be killed. But maybe I buy it. I don't know. Because it seems to be pretty serious dogma from the Ministry, and the Inquisitors are pretty hard about this thing. So you'd think that this would be common knowledge, but
it's
I don't know.
One of the primary duties of the Inquisitors. So.
Exactly.
But do you know that at 13?
A nobleman with that much of a dickhead father in one of the higher nobility houses, I'd say, yeah, he probably does. His father wouldn't have spared that detail for him. Especially if the father is the one who's forcing him to do it to start with. He's like, all right, go in there, do your business, then I'll send the Inquisitor in there to do his business.
Unless he didn't know that it was a ska woman at the time. Maybe that's why. I don't know. It seems a little bit I'm not sure I buy that part, but maybe. He seems pretty sincere here. And he comes out and says, she's like, how many noblemen do this sort of thing? And he's like, maybe a third? I don't know. I don't really spend my time with that kind of person.
Yeah. He's like, hey, before we start hanging out, do you regularly have sex with ska and kill them, or? All right, cool, we're cool.
He calls out her handkerchief that she's using to kind of clean herself up because she was crying. And she's like, yeah, a boy gave it to me, and
you'd love him. He's even more confusing than you.
So true. I like that the conversation turns really quick where she's like, what about your father? Is he one of those third? And he's like, he likes all kinds of mistresses, ska, noble, doesn't really matter. I still think about it that night, and I wish. And she's like, it wasn't your fault, Elend. You were just a 13-year-old boy. Like, she's really desperate to forgive him for.
She wants to believe the best in him,
which is cute and naive and a little worrying, maybe.
Is it cute though?
It's puppy love.
Yeah.
I guess.
I love his quote that, well, you probably aren't the first lady I've made cry at a ball, but you are the first one that I care about. And she says, why have you been avoiding me? And he explains that he's like, I don't like the people that you're hanging out with, and you kind of really fit in, and I didn't want to mess that up as someone who does not fit in and does not want to run in these political games.
This is like a very Grease moment. It's like your friends aren't my friends sort of thing. We're from different worlds.
Kind of, except that in this case, he's like, your friends are those really tacky people, like that 1/3 that I was talking about that I don't want to spend my time with. Which makes sense because Vin is supposed to be, digging up the dirt and fitting in, but and Elend doesn't have to worry about fitting in. But and Vin's just like, even if 1/3 of the noblemen are murdering ska women, then something's probably salvageable about their society. She really doesn't want to let go of maybe they're not all bad, maybe this is okay. These people are okay. She does not want to get aboard the Kelsier and Doxson train of they all just need to die because they're all horrible. Which I probably. Generally, if you take an entire population of people and say those people are all horrible and should all die, probably you're wrong to some extent, just as a general rule.
Yeah, I mean, again, to bring up Avatar Last Airbender, it's like they had an entire season dedicated to, the Fire Nation aren't all horrible people.
Yeah, it's true. So I don't know. She goes into a whole thing where she pretends that she hid runaway ska on her plantation as a way to be able to say, maybe I do know something about the ska if you're interested. And he asks, what about their intelligence? Do they seem slow? And she's like, no. What? I'm sure I've met some ska that are more clever than you. And they're angry about how they've been treated. And he's like, oh, they know about the disparities between them and us? Maybe he doesn't know much about the plantation ska or the ska after all, if he thinks that you could not notice that one group works and the other group beats them to death when they don't work hard enough. But that seems pretty...
Yeah, it's like, you can't possibly think that they don't notice that.
Yeah, but, I mean, plantation and city ska life are very different as well. So
it's true.
Has he ever been to a plantation? Has he ever been there? Like, I can't imagine that for Elend on a daily basis, the ska would just be murdered in their home. Like, they would be taken outside. And I mean, yes, he'd know it would happen, but I don't think he would actually witness it.
It's a fair point.
His father, yes, probably would, but I don't think that's something that he would be witnessing.
I feel like to live in this society as we know it, he has to be really kind of oblivious. Which makes me think that he's either a very oblivious person or this is all an act. Which is the same thing when we were back a couple chapters ago talking about him leaving all these books out that are potentially dangerous. Either he is really oblivious and just like totally doesn't think about the possible consequences, or it's part of some more subtle plan. So in my mind, we're still there.
From the conversation he has at the end, I feel like this is him just playing dumb to get her so she can keep talking. Like, because he wants her, like, she's really spilling it at the moment, and he's just like, okay, I will say what I need to say to get you to not stop what you're doing. But yeah, I don't know. I spent this entire conversation going, oh my god, Vin, shut up. You're going to get in so much shit for this.
Yeah, I was like, she's going to let something slip that's not good.
But like even if she says nothing that endangers the rebellion, the fact that if Shan's hiding behind a curtain or something and listening to all this and reports it up the chain, yeah, they're going to come down on her.
And not even just that, but we get to a little bit later, and Elend is meeting with like his 5 buddies or whatever, and he's like, she helped run away ska on her plantation. Which, yeah, thanks for putting that out there to everyone in the world, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He also seems the most enthusiastic in that room.
Oh, definitely.
Of the 5 people that are in there.
Right.
So for him, he could be thinking that this is great. She'll help our cause. We should invite her. And the others are not quite there. And
whereas someone else is thinking, this is great. We've got someone to throw under the bus.
Yeah, his little group, and well, okay, for listeners, they end their conversation. He goes off to talk with his little group, and Vin convinces Says that she should follow using allomancy and listen outside the window. And so they're having this conversation where, like, the one guy is like, aren't we gonna do something more than read? And Vin's like, yeah, you go, guy. Reading sucks. But he's got his little philosophy.
Because knowledge is power.
And knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe.
Oh, we missed that he gave her the handkerchief.
Oh, that's true. He totally he gave her a handkerchief, and which was basically his way of saying, like, hey, you want to come back to my place and see my thick book? I've got a lot of them.
I have many leather-bound books.
Yeah.
He gives her the handkerchief, and she's once again completely oblivious to the romantic overtones here, because she tries to hand it back, and he's like, oh no, you should keep that. It wasn't meant to be just functional. And she's like, oh, thank you.
Oh.
And like, that's exactly what she wanted, was Elend to be interested in her. And then I like when Sazed walks in, he's like, another handkerchief, mistress? Jeez, you are starting a collection. It's cute. It's a cute moment for Vin, and she's so happy, and maybe she shouldn't be, but I don't know. We'll see. But,
I mean, for her, though, like, something, a normal teenage girl in that situation, thinking with her heart and not with her head, her heart will get broken, and that will be sad. For her, though, if she does something stupid, probably millions of people's lives are at risk. So
yeah. At the very least, her life and all of the crew that she works with could be lost. So, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, Vin, she goes and listens to them, and they're having, their theological discussion. And really, Elend seems passionate about government and things, whereas some of these other guys are more like, I don't care about that stuff, like class difference, whatever. But I can see why we need to present a unified front to the Lord Ruler to try to keep our noble power. So they seem to be on kind of different levels about what they are doing here. And then it turns out Kelsier's feet away also listening to this. And Vin,
because of course he is.
Well, apparently he's listened to them several times since they reported to him that these people were meeting. And he's just like, yeah, they're just planning alliances. They do that.
He says that, but it's just like this is the angry dad waiting with the shotgun. It's like, you fuck with my daughter and you're getting the business end of this, buddy. And then the daughter shows up. He's just fumbling, putting the gun behind his back. It's like, hey, honey, how you doing?
Look, man, I got no problem going back to the pits of Halfson.
Oh, see, now that reminds me.
He doesn't seem too stressed about these guys, though.
No, he doesn't.
He's pretty chilled, but if he was stressed about it, would he show Vin?
Yeah, he knows that she would not be happy about it if he was, planning on doing something.
No.
Plus, if he really didn't think there was a big deal about this, would he still be following them?
Also true.
He said he's followed them a few times. If he thinks there's nothing in it, then he wouldn't still be here.
That's a good point.
But he does say something along the lines of, perhaps we can involve them somehow, whether it's just a Vin, stop, we need to get out of here kind of, let's do that. Or it's maybe they really could work and we're watching them to see what happens. Is this a front? Are they talking about something else? Are they having these conversations because they're pretty sure they could be being watched by Scar Rebellion or...
That would be some deep thinking if they thought that.
I don't know that they're at that level of thinking, but if Elend was an imposter, maybe he is.
Wheels within wheels. There's always another secret. I like it. You're thinking deep. It's good.
There's always another secret.
Yeah. So I like his line is like, don't get like that, Vin. They seem like nice enough lads for noblemen. I promise I won't kill any of them. All right. And then, as Jaymee said, he's like, maybe we can find a use for them. They do seem more open-minded than most. I just don't want you to be disappointed, Vin. They're still noblemen. Perhaps they can't help what they are, but that doesn't change their nature. It's so condescending, and it's like they can't help being evil, the scum of the earth, noblemen that I want to murder. It's not their fault, but they still are. Kelsier also thinks that she's been sneaking off and using allomancy without permission, and she's like, no, Say said that I could. And he's like, oh, really? Okay, then. Meet us back at the shop. And that is the end of the chapter. He winks and jumps off the wall into the mists.
Of course he does.
Yep.
He's got to make the dramatic exit. It's very important. Both these chapters are a lot of how Vin feels about stuff. How Vin feels about reading, how she feels about boys and her friends and Elend and all this. But we also get a look at Ferrokemi, which I like.
It sounds like Vin needs a visit from LeVar Burton to know the importance of reading.
And
He
next
can help
week, Vin
anyone.
appears on Sesame Street.
Yeah. The letter V.
Elmo, I don't like to read. Okay, any final thoughts about this chapter before we run into predictions? Or these chapters, sorry. There was more than one. I know that.
Nothing for me.
Okay.
I think these noblemen need to, I don't know. They need to have more fun. They need to do something that's more fun than these balls. I want to see them.
Balls every night.
I know, exactly. That's not fun.
Let's go out for a nice game of croquet.
Yeah, I want to see whatever game they're playing. I want to see what that is. What are they doing in their downtime?
Well, apparently Elend reads books and talks about it with his buddies in, the tower.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure they can find some way to play a game of badminton or something that will still make the Scar's life hell.
Right.
You get to kill a Scar every time you get a point.
Right. It's like,
Oh.
all right, winner gets to play the Ska to death.
Let's go for a nice friendly game of darts, and the dartboard is painted on the back of a Scar.
Oh, yeah, I could totally see that.
Oh, that's
Okay.
awful.
Who's got
I know,
predictions?
the nobles are awful.
They are awful people. Kelsier said so. And if you can't believe Kelsier and Doxson, who can you believe, really?
Kelsey's word I struggle with. Doxson I can trust, I think.
Okay, who's got predictions? Who wants to go first?
I'll go again. I'm leaning into my prediction that I've made before and that I talked about earlier. I think Elend is actually interested in looking, and I think most of that interest is probably intellectual. I think he is interested in finding out how things work and possibly creating some kind of movement to change things. But I think there's a time that's going to come, maybe if not in this book, later, where he's going to be told basically what's going on with Vin, and he's going to have to make a decision. And I think he's going to make the decision that he wants to keep his noble way of life, even though he's got all these aspirations to change things.
So in your mind, does that mean like turning her in after he finds out what she's doing, or does that mean just not helping?
It could be a combination of things. Honestly, what I envision is he finding out what's going on and kind of stepping back, and because he doesn't intervene, it creates problems.
I guess we will find out. Who's next? Who's got some?
I got one. This is probably one of the dumbest predictions I've made, which is saying something because I've had some doozies.
Oh no.
I.e. volcanoes.
But this is not a prediction of something that will happen, but a prediction of something that has already happened that we don't know the details about. Sayes mentioned that there was something in Elend's past where he nearly died and he didn't show any signs of allomancy as a result of that.
Yep.
Right. First off, I believe that he did gain some allomantic powers, and he's just been smart enough to hide them from everyone's view because he doesn't want to bust them out straight away. I don't know if he's a Mistborn or a Mistborn. For the sake of the crackpot theory, let's say he's a Mistborn. Why not? But I think it has something to do with his father forcing him to go and bed a Scar woman, and that's actually where his idealism started. Something went wrong, and everybody died. Because sure, and as a result of that, he snapped, and he has Mistborn powers. Maybe his powers coming in was what caused everyone to die. And the story of the banditry attack is just something that they spread to cover up the fact that some serious shit went down when his father forced him to bed a Scar woman.
That is going a long way. Okay.
Yep. Can't wait to see how I'm proven wrong.
I think there are parts in there that could have some merit.
Like the whole thing
Thought
is
about
nuts, but maybe a bit of it.
Yeah.
Maybe
Well, That's what I go for.
Could be. I mean,
My predictions have to be dumb, but if at least one thing in them is true, then it's not a total wash.
you think about Kelsier when he snapped, he said a lot of people died that night. When Vin, well, presumably Vin's mother tried to kill her, and there was the sister that did die. What if the mother tried to kill Vin, and then Vin snapped and killed her sister? So maybe something.
Yeah.
Could
And that
be
would
true in
explain
there.
why she was being worshipped as a god by the mother.
Maybe.
Okay. Was that your prediction, or did you have something else?
Good thinking. I was sort of thinking along the lines of, pretty much having thoughts along what Joe was saying about Elend and Vin sort of coming together. I kind of had the thought that maybe one day they would end up sleeping together, and he would then find out she's Scar and have to make a decision about what would happen, and then that would sort of show his true allegiance.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that's all I've really got this week.
Imagine how traumatic that reveal would
Prediction.
be for him if he's still so upset about the one time that it happened, and then the second time he's ever with a woman, it's like, oh, by the way,
Well-
I'm also a Ska that you might have to kill.
Oh, the last time this happened,
Well,
everyone
especially
died.
if he really does care for her, but he's not quite at the point of abandoning his position in nobility, that could be a really big conflict for him. Like, he has to walk away from one or the other. And I mean, it's walk away from nobility or kill the woman you love. So
Well, yeah, but the other choice is also it's not just walking away from the nobility. It's the Inquisitors may show up at your door now.
exactly, yeah,
It's scary.
very true.
Okay. I like I like where we're going here. Some interesting stuff. We do not have emails or anything like that this week, but there were a couple of comments on Podbean. This one person, Atif, whatever, commented on several of our episodes a few days ago, and I'm just going to pick out a couple of them that were interesting. One of them was, I realized that because of the breaks between episodes, it provides time for you guys to think about the chapters and come up with predictions. The first time I read the book, I finished in 2 days, so I didn't stop to think about what would happen, which that's how I usually read also, Atif. I read so fast that I just let myself go and like get taken along for the ride and don't really stop to think about these things. So it's a very different experience as we're going through and taking a lot of time to talk about individual things and make guesses.
Yeah, this is a weird way to read a book.
But fun for me because I could read ahead if I want.
I'm enjoying it. It's still weird.
And one of the other comments was we were talking about Shanna Larial insulting Vin when she's just like, like, look at you. What you need to be a nobleman is not that. He or she, Atif, they say, the way that Shanna Larial insults Vin totally reminded me of How to Train Your Dragon when Stoic says something about Hiccup and Hiccup responds with, you just gestured to all of me. Which I was totally trying to think during the episode. While we were talking about that scene, I was like, there's something somewhere where the guy is like, you just gestured to all of me as what is wrong. And I couldn't think of it at the time. So I was so grateful when this person commented and said what it was. But that's absolutely what happens in that scene. For that matter, that's kind of what happens in the scene this time when just Shanna Larial's always like, you suck. And you should really be sucking up to me more.
She's just like that because she wants friends and doesn't know how to make them.
Oh, that's the nicest possible take on Shan.
Yeah, I
This is
feel
how
like
everyone
that's
talked to
not
me.
true.
This must be how people talk to each other, right?
Oh.
Yeah. This is how my mother talks to me. I mean, I assume that's how I'm supposed to talk to people.
Wow.
Now you got me thinking of like Azula, where she's like, my mother thought that I was like a crazy sadist or whatever. He's like, she was right, of course, but it still hurt.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. Now I'm sad. It sucks to be a Ska, and also it sucks to be a noble, and it just sucks all around. The Final Empire is not a fun place to hang out.
It just sucks the final part.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, the Scar are beaten. Nobles treat each other like shit. Lord Rule is just an angsty little brat.
We actually haven't seen anything in the Final Empire that makes life nice. Really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Just
even for the nobles who have like tons of slave labor to work for them, it's still not a great fun place to be. Like ash is falling from the sky all the time, messing up your clothes, and They have balls. They go to these parties all the time. Maybe that's fun.
I mean,
That
Vin
would get
does have a
so
lot of fun.
exhausting, though.
oh yeah. I mean, if everything else in the world sucks, maybe the balls are your only respite. But yeah, seriously.
Maybe the Lord Ruler has fun when he goes every 3 days to hang out with the Spike Faces. And
Yeah, he has a spike face orgy.
he's having a good time. That's the important thing, right?
That is not something I needed to picture.
No, I was trying to skim right over that. I'm not
No.
going to acknowledge that it was said because I don't want to picture anything about it. So,
Yeah, he shows him his really thick book. He's
Also,
like, look,
but
check
also-
out my journal.
But also, like a spike face orgy, someone's going to get tetanus out of that.
Yeah.
So, for next week, everybody, we're reading chapters 24 and 25. Read those. So, join us for that, everyone. It should be lots of fun. Music by Miracle Sound. Always got to throw that in. Acknowledge the awesomeness that is the music. And we will see you next time. Thanks for listening.
Bring out the brother in me. I'm searching for unity. Everything is changing inside.